The text came in just after noon, while I was in a meeting about our Paris expansion. "Don't come to the wedding, Morgan. It'll be better for everyone." It was from my father. No context, no apology, just a dismissal. And the kicker? The wedding was at my hotel. The Wellington family had chosen the Marston in Boston, my flagship property, the one that put the Wellington collection on the map. And they still didn't think I belonged, not even as a guest. I stared at the message, half laughing. The kind of laugh you let out when something finally snaps. They didn't know, of course, that I owned it, that everything from the Italian marble in the lobby to the custom menu at the rooftop bar existed because I willed it into existence. But even if they did, I doubt it would have mattered. Quick note, before we go further, drop a comment. Where are you listening from today? I opened our security group chat, typed it out without flinching. Wellington family no longer VIP, pull comps, standard service only. Sent. My name's Morgan. I'm 34. I live between Boston and New York now, but I grew up in Wellesley, Massachusetts, where being a Wellington meant something, or at least it was supposed to. My dad, Harold, was the type of man who could quote obscure legal precedent like scripture and still manage to look down on you while doing it. Corporate lawyer, Harvard alum, all status, no soul. My mom, Diana, was just as bad, but quieter about it. More focused on the country club social ladder. Presentation was everything. Messy emotions were for people who didn't know better. When I told them I wanted to work in hotels, they acted like I said I wanted to join the circus. Service industry might as well have meant failure. "You're a Wellington," my father would say. "Act like it." Funny thing is, I was. Every time I picked up extra shifts at the front desk, every time I handled a crisis at 2 a.m, every time I turned a disaster into a 5-star review, I was acting like a Wellington, just not their kind. So no, I didn't cry when I read that text. I smiled, cold, sharp. Then I leaned back in my chair, looked out over the skyline from my 35th floor office and said out loud, "Not welcome at my own damn hotel? Fine. Let's see how welcome they feel without me pulling the strings." And then I picked up the phone. The phone didn't ring long, just long enough for me to stare at the shelves behind my desk, lined with hotel keys from every property I'd ever stayed in. Marriott, Ritz, Fairmont. Some were cracked or faded. I kept them all. That was always my thing. I wasn't the kid trading baseball cards or building model trains. I was the weirdo pocketing room keys, memorizing check-in routines, watching how bellhops moved like clockwork and how concierges could solve anything with a smile and a phone call. It wasn't just cool, it felt alive. My parents thought it was a phase, just a weird obsession I'd grow out of. "You'll grow up," my mom said once, folding sweaters in my room, "and realize that sort of job is for people who don't have options." I had options, just not the ones they wanted. In junior year of high school, I started researching hospitality programs in secret, snuck into the library between classes, printed brochures, hid them under my mattress like porn. Cornell had the best one in the country. I filled out the whole application without telling anyone. Wrote the essays at night after pretending to go to bed. The day I got in, I waited until dinner to say it. My hands shook. I'd rehearsed the sentence 100 times. I got into Cornell's School of Hotel Administration. My dad didn't even look up from his plate. Not what we discussed. That was it. No congratulations, no questions, just dismissal. "I'm not going to law school," I said. My voice cracked halfway through. He set his fork down, finally looked at me. "Then I guess you're on your own." And that was that. I took him at his word. Picked up a job bussing tables at a country club in Newton, then another at a diner on Route 9. I worked weekends at a landscaping company just for the cash under the table, scraped together enough to cover my first semester. Took out loans for the rest. They didn't help, barely called. When they did, it was awkward, like they were checking in on a distant cousin. During my freshman year, my older brother Brandon got into Columbia Law. My parents lost their minds, threw him a backyard party with catered sushi and one of those stupid custom cakes with the school logo. Me? They didn't even show up to my graduation. I stood in line in Ithaca, cap on, nerves buzzing, scanning the crowd like an idiot thinking maybe they'd surprise me. Maybe they'd had a change of heart. They didn't. I found out later they'd gone to Brandon's graduation in the city instead. Same weekend. No mention, no apology, not even a text. I sat alone in a bar that night with my diploma in my bag and a shot of well whiskey in front of me, and I made a quiet promise. They were gonna regret looking down on me. Not because I'd make a scene, not because I'd grovel for attention, but because one day they'd walk into a hotel and not even realize it was mine, because they never bothered to see me clearly in the first place. And when they finally did, it would be too damn late. 2 weeks after graduation, I moved into a studio in Midtown with 2 other guys from Cornell. The place was barely livable. No AC, 1 stove burner that actually worked, and a shower so small you had to keep your elbows tucked. Rent still ate half my paycheck, but I didn't care. I had my first job, front desk associate at the Morrow, a boutique hotel wedged between 2 banks and a juice bar on East 45th. 115 rooms, no brand name, 0 budget, but a GM who gave a damn. I took every shift I could get. Overnight, doubles, holidays. Didn't matter. I watched the managers, took notes, memorized reservation systems. I kept a spreadsheet of guest complaints, color-coded, tracked how we resolved them. Every pissed-off guest was a puzzle. I started figuring out how to solve them fast, with personality. A honeymoon couple stuck with a smoking room, upgraded and sent champagne. Business traveler lost his luggage, bought him a tie and dress shirt out of my own paycheck. He left a 5-star review the next day. That got me noticed. Catherine Reynolds showed up 6 months in. Regional director, smart, sharp, always wore this gray blazer with a pen clipped to the lapel like a weapon. She watched me check in 4 guests in a row without breaking pace. Afterward, she pulled me aside. "You ever think about management?" I thought it was a joke. I was 23, broke, and still wore the same 2 suits on rotation. "I think about making rent," I said. She laughed. "That's fair, but if you're serious, I'll keep an eye on you." She did. A year later, when the Chicago property was circling the drain, she called me. "Want to go fix something that's on fire?" I said yes before she finished the sentence. That place was a wreck. Staff turnover through the roof, online ratings in the gutter, no leadership worth a damn. I slept in the housekeeping office the first week just to stay close to the mess. Trained the night staff myself, fired 3 managers, wrote SOPs from scratch. It nearly killed me. But 6 months in, we were breaking even. Guests started coming back. Staff stopped quitting. That's when Catherine pushed for me to get the assistant manager title. I was proud. Dumb proud. Called my dad that night like a moron, thinking maybe this time he'd hear it differently. "I'm assistant manager now," I said, "of the Chicago property." There was a pause. Then he chuckled. "Hey, still playing hotel, huh?" That was it. I sat on the floor of my closet, the one in my apartment above the boiler room, and let it hit me. Not just the laugh, the weight of every choice, the cost of still wanting something from him. I cried, quiet, angry tears, fist in my mouth to keep from screaming. Then I stood up, changed shirts, and went back downstairs. I had a night audit to finish. That audit turned into a promotion. Then another. By the time I hit 26, I was running 3 properties under Catherine's region. I had no life, no sleep, but I was finally stacking wins. The next year, I took the jump. Found this broken-down hotel in Providence. Old bones, trash reputation, leaking roof. The owner was desperate to unload it. I offered pennies, got laughed out of the room. Came back with a pitch deck, a plan, and a list of ways to cut costs and double ADR in 6 months. He took the deal. I called it the Wellington. Not because I wanted their approval. I just wanted the name to mean something different, mine. The first year nearly killed me. I lived in one of the stripped-out staff rooms. No heat. A space heater that tripped the breaker every few hours. Caffeine was my blood type. I handled front desk and back office, fixed toilets, folded towels, spent 2 straight nights repainting a hallway because the contractor flaked. But the place started turning. I watched the reviews go from 2 stars to 4, started booking out weekends, hired a small team, all hustlers like me. By month 10, we broke even. By month 12, we were profitable. I kept reinvesting, cut my own salary to keep momentum. That's when Catherine said, "You ready to scale this?" She lined up the meetings, small investors first, then bigger fish. I had data, vision, a real turnaround model. We closed our first funding round in 6 weeks. After that, it snowballed. By the time I was 29, I had 12 properties across the Northeast: Boston, Hartford, Baltimore, Albany. Each one flipped from failure to flagship. Guests started asking if we were a chain. I told them, not yet. We became the Wellington Collection. The name wasn't just personal anymore. It was an actual brand. That's when the award came. Some industry trade group gave me Emerging Hospitality Leader of the Year. There was a fancy dinner in New York. Black tie, big stage, camera crews. I didn't even think about inviting my family. But someone must have told them. They showed up. Late. I spotted them after dessert. My mom in a stiff navy dress, Dad in the same suit he wore to Brandon's graduation. They sat in the back. Didn't clap when I went up. Didn't say anything after I thanked Catherine from the stage. I walked over afterward, still holding the plaque, and said, "Didn't expect to see you." "We had a free night," Dad said. "Figured we'd check it out." I laughed, but not because it was funny. "You built all this yourself?" Mom asked, looking around like the tablecloths were more interesting than my answer. "Yeah." Dad squinted at the crowd. "But is there real money in this? Like, long term?" That hit harder than I let on. I didn't answer, just nodded and walked back to my table. Catherine put a hand on my shoulder, said nothing, didn't need to. After that, I stopped telling them anything. No updates, no invites. I didn't need their approval. I finally believed that. But hearing that question again after all I'd done, yeah, it stuck with me. So I poured it into the work, opened our flagship Boston property, launched a loyalty program, rolled out a concierge app. My name was in Forbes. I turned down 2 acquisition offers, but the only people who ever asked how I was doing were the ones who didn't share my last name, and honestly, that was fine by me. I was at my desk reviewing vendor quotes for the new Scottsdale project when the text came in. "Hey, just booked the wedding at some hotel in Boston. The Marston looks super nice." Jess, casual, no clue. I stared at the screen for a long second. Not because I was surprised. That part I'd stopped expecting years ago. They picked my hotel and didn't even know. Not once had anyone in that family bothered to connect the dots. No curiosity, no questions. Just assumed I was still playing hotel somewhere with a name tag and a clipboard. I could have told her. Could have corrected the some hotel thing. But something in me held back. Let them walk into it. Maybe they'd finally see the work for what it was, on its own terms. Not because it was handed to me or dressed up in legalese, just because it was damn good. So, I stayed silent. The site tour was set for a Friday. I watched it all from the office, through the security feed, 4 angles, full volume. Jess looked happy. She always had her own orbit, less cold, more open. My mom followed close behind, clutching a leather planner like she was organizing a UN summit. My dad lagged 10 steps back, hands behind his back like a judge in chambers. The sales manager, Erica, gave a flawless tour, walked them through the ballroom, the rooftop garden, the bridal suite, explained every detail, linens, lighting, late-night food options, and my parents nitpicked everything. "This carpet feels a little dated," my mom said, staring down like she smelled something. "Is there valet or just that weird loop outside?" Dad asked, already irritated. Erica smiled through it. "Handled them like a pro. I comped the best suite, upgraded every room, gave them the elite wedding package, champagne tower, live quartet, private concierge, all of it free, quietly, no name attached, because I still wanted it to go right, because Jess deserved better than the Cold War I had with our parents." The rehearsal dinner landed on a humid Thursday night. Everyone dressed to impress. My team bent over backward, getting the timing right. Past hors d'oeuvres, signature cocktails, custom menus. I wasn't planning to be there, but when the call came from the floor supervisor, "There's an issue with a guest in the wine room," I went down. I recognized the voice before I saw him. "Are you kidding me?" my dad bellowed. "I said Napa Cab, not Merlot." The poor sommelier, kid couldn't have been more than 21, stood frozen, red in the face, holding the bottle like it was a grenade. I stepped in, calm, controlled. "Everything all right here?" My dad turned, blinked. Didn't register me right away. "This server doesn't know the difference between a Cabernet and a goddamn juice box." "Sommelier," I corrected. "What?" "He's not a server. He's a sommelier. And he's doing his job just fine." The room got quiet. People started pretending not to stare. My dad's eyes narrowed. "I don't know who you think you are, but stay out of this." I took a half step forward. "I am in this." He clenched his jaw, turned his back on me like I wasn't there. I looked at the kid, gave him a nod. "You're good. Go check on table 5. He nodded and bolted. My dad didn't say another word. He just walked out of the room, shoulders tight, muttering something to my mom as she scurried after him. I stood there a second longer. Then I turned and headed back to the office. By morning, the staff was hanging on by threads. Housekeeping was 2 rooms behind. Florals arrived late. The lighting crew couldn't find the control tablet. I watched it all from the operations feed, controlled chaos, and then saw something that stopped me cold. My father, on the ballroom floor, rearranging tables. He had a clipboard in one hand and was barking at a banquet captain like he owned the place. I watched him move a reserve sign, shift a centerpiece, then wave over a server to "fix this mess." That was it. I picked up the phone. Conference room prep, penthouse suite, 15 minutes, full exec team, and bring the Wellingtons. I met my GM and director of operations outside the elevator. Both looked wired and stressed. Catherine had flown in the night before. She stood off to the side, arms crossed, reading me like always. The door opened. My parents stepped in like they were attending a press conference. Mom in pearls. Dad still holding the damn clipboard. "What's this about?" he asked, glancing around. I stood at the head of the table. Everyone else took seats. My parents stayed standing. "I wanted to clarify a few things before the ceremony," I said. My dad narrowed his eyes. "Is this about last night? If that server can't take basic feedback, that's on him." I didn't blink. "He's not a server, and this isn't about that." I turned to the team. "You all know who I am. They don't." Then I looked back at my parents. "This is my company, the Wellington Collection, 15 hotels, including this one." Silence. My mom's lips parted slightly. My dad stared at me like I'd just claimed to own the moon. "You're joking," he said flatly. "No," I said. "Every square inch of this place was touched by me or someone I hired. I signed every contract. I negotiated every rate. That sommelier you humiliated, I hired him out of school." "You're telling me this whole time?" My mom's voice trailed off. "Yes," I said. "This hotel, the Marston, it's mine." My dad scoffed. "So you've been playing games, hiding this to prove some kind of point?" I stepped forward. "No, I stayed quiet so you could finally see it for what it was, without your filter, without the condescension." Jess walked in right then, in a robe, mid-makeup. She froze just inside the door. "What's going on?" She looked from me to our parents, back again. I didn't speak. Catherine stood and gently shut the door behind her. "I own this hotel," I said, eyes still on my dad. "And every other one in the collection. I built it all, from nothing." Jess blinked. "Wait, this is yours?" "Every inch." She didn't look mad, just stunned. Hurt, maybe, but not angry. My father exhaled sharply and waved his hand. "Well then," he said, like it was some negotiation. "Since it's all staying in the family, how about the Wellington discount?" I laughed, loud, quick, cold. "You still don't get it," I said. "You're not family here, you're guests. That's how you've always treated me, like a stranger at your table." He frowned. "Now wait a second." "No," I snapped. "I let you rent space in my world without telling you. Gave you the best of what I built. You insulted my staff, trashed my hotel, and didn't even recognize what was in front of you." I turned to the team. "As of now, revoke all Wellington comps, strip the upgrades, standard rates only." My mom's face went pale. Jess opened her mouth like she wanted to speak, then didn't. "We're your family," my dad said, voice low. "Then act like it," I said, "or don't expect the treatment." I walked out before they could respond. I didn't even sit down after I left that room. I walked straight to the operations hub and gave the order. Strip VIP status on all Wellington rooms. Switch to standard billing. Key cards expire at midnight. No one blinked, no hesitation. That's what I'd built. A team that trusted my judgment, no matter how personal the call. Back in my office, the screens lit up. 4 angles, live feed, ballroom, cocktail terrace, bridal suite hallway, garden canopy. Jess looked stunning. Hair pinned back, ivory gown trailing behind her like a movie scene. But there was something in her eyes that didn't match the rest of the picture. Not fear, not anger, just wait. My parents stood near the bar, stiff, uncomfortable, out of place in a room they no longer controlled. I poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon, sat back, and watched it all unfold like a movie I wasn't cast in. At 9:43, the first call came through. Front desk rang my line. "Mr. Wellington's card isn't working. He's demanding to speak with someone." I took a sip and said, "Patch it through." There was a short click, then his voice. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "We've been locked out of our room. Get someone up here now." I kept my voice even. "You've been reclassified as standard guests, Harold. Policy applies." "You little," he started, then caught himself. "You really want to do this now? During your sister's wedding?" "You already did," I said. "Enjoy the rest of your evening." I hung up. A minute later, I watched the night manager step in, calm, professional. "Yes, Mr. Wellington," she said, perfectly polite. "We'll get a new key printed right away. Standard issue. Just need to see your ID." He huffed but handed it over. That was the moment that hit harder than I expected. Watching him get treated like any other guest, no power, no special favor, no title. Just another name in the system. It should have felt like justice. Maybe it did. But it stung too. I stared at the glass in my hand, the silence in the office. The distance I'd worked so hard to create finally holding its ground. They celebrated without me, laughed, danced, toasted. Jess smiled through it all. But every time she turned her head toward the door, part of me wondered if she expected me to walk through it. I didn't. They made me a stranger a long time ago. Now I was just honoring the role. I didn't leave the office for a week. Didn't answer calls. Barely ate. Just sat there, surrounded by silence and spreadsheets, pretending the numbers needed me more than I needed air. Catherine walked in on day 7. No knock. Just opened the door like she owned the place. Because, honestly, she kinda did. "You look like hell," she said. I didn't respond, just stared at the budget projections for Q4 like they could explain something. She stood across from me, arms crossed. "You built this whole thing to prove yourself." I laughed under my breath. And it worked, but at what cost? That broke something. The tears hit before I could stop them. Sharp, ugly, full-body sobs I hadn't let out since college. I dropped my head into my hands, elbows on the desk, completely wrecked. She didn't say a word, just sat with me. Let it happen. First time in years, I let anyone see me cry. The next morning, I booked a therapy consult, paid full price, no corporate discounts. First session, I barely spoke. Second session, I didn't stop. 3 weeks in, I reached out to Jess, just a text. "If you ever want to talk, I'm here." She called the next night. No anger, just confusion. "Why didn't you tell me it was yours?" "Would it have changed anything?" I asked. She went quiet, then said, "Maybe, I don't know." We met for coffee the next weekend, talked like siblings again, shared dumb stories. She apologized for the way things played out. I didn't make her grovel, I just listened. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. 2 days after that, I got the email from my mom. Subject line, WSJ article. She'd read the piece on my expansion, front page of the business section, my photo in a navy suit, smiling like I hadn't just gone through emotional surgery. The body of the email was short. "We didn't know. We never saw how far you took this. Maybe that's on us." I stared at it for 5 minutes. No anger left, just exhaustion. Then I typed 4 words. "Maybe that can change." Hit send, didn't expect a reply. But for the first time in a long time, it felt like the door wasn't completely locked anymore, just closed for now. 3 months later, I invited them to Paris. No special reason, no family milestone, just an opening, our newest property, a 5-star renovation off Rue Saint-Honoré. I told my assistant to book them a client itinerary. That's all they were, clients. I met them in the marble lobby in a dark suit, no tie. My team knew not to say anything, not "welcome back," not "Mr. Wellington's parents," just polite neutral service. They followed me through every floor, rooftop terrace, Michelin-starred restaurant, spa-level suites with heated floors and skyline views. I gave them the same tour I gave top-tier investors. For once, they were speechless. My mom touched the velvet headboard in one suite like it was breakable. My dad didn't ask about margins, didn't check his watch. He just took it in. At the end of the tour, he turned to me and said, "This is impressive." No lecture, no passive-aggressive jab. just 2 words that had eluded me my whole life. I nodded, didn't smile, just said, "Thanks." We had dinner at the rooftop bar that night. Quiet meal, no tension, no legal talk, no politics. For the first time, they weren't performing. They were just there, present. It didn't fix everything, but it was something. The next morning, Jess FaceTimed me from Boston, baby in her arms. "She came early," she said, beaming. I couldn't stop smiling. "Everyone okay?" "Perfect," she said, then paused. "I want you to be her godfather." That hit harder than any award ever had. No spotlight, no press release, just trust. "Yeah," I said, voice catching a little. "Of course." After that, something shifted. I started showing up more, not just to family things, but for people like me, the ones nobody sees coming. I launched a mentorship program. No name recognition, no Ivy League requirement, just grit, drive, guys working night shifts and sleeping on couches, trying to climb a wall no one's helping them over. I mentored the first 3 myself, sat with them through business plans and funding applications, let them shadow me during site visits. One of them, Tyrell, called me the day his first property hit full occupancy. "I did it," he said, breathless. "I really did it." I told him what no one told me. You always could. Every time I watched one of them succeed, something in me loosened, something old, worn out. I built this empire on needing to prove something, but helping them? That's what actually helped me. A year to the day after Jess's wedding, I hosted the East Coast Hospitality Leadership Summit at the Marston, my hotel, my stage. We packed the ballroom, execs, investors, press, rising stars, the whole damn industry under one roof. And my family showed up, not late, not confused, not cold, just present. My mom in a navy suit, Jess with Lily on her hip, and my dad wearing a name tag that said Harold Wellington, guest like everyone else. After the keynote, I was shaking hands when I heard it. "This is my son, Morgan," my dad said, standing with a group from Blackstone. "He built this whole thing himself. Proud of him." I froze. Those last 3 words knocked the air out of me harder than any punch he ever threw. Proud. Of me. Jess came over a minute later, Lily in a soft green onesie, reaching for anything that moved. "She's lucky to have you in her life," Jess said, placing her in my arms. Lily grabbed my tie, eyes wide, not a care in the world. I held her like something rare, something I never had growing up. After the room thinned, I stepped outside. Walked up to the edge of the harbor terrace, looked out over the water, the skyline, the building, with my name lit in gold at the top. And I thought about that kid in Wellesley, the one who stole shampoo bottles and hotel pens like they were treasure, who used to imagine owning something big just to be seen. I built all this chasing their approval, every property, every award, every long night. Turns out, I never needed it. I don't owe them anything. But I gave them a shot. And I gave myself more than they ever could. Peace, clarity, my own damn story. I pulled out my phone, typed the message to security. No restrictions on the Wellingtons. Treat them like family. If they act like it, sent. Because sometimes the real power move isn't revenge. It's realizing you don't need it, and I don't. I've got my own name on the building. That's enough.